welcome to our fourth episode, I believe, of Proud to Farm. I'm questioning myself now. It's Jake McRobert from the Cars Billiton podcast. I'm here with Stephen Hook, our beef and sheep manager, and Chris Wright, our product manager of equipment and metalwork. Is that right, Chris?
That's right, yeah, that's right indeed.
So tell us what you do, Chris, and what your day looks like.
I'm sort of the product manager for the livestock handling equipment at Cars Billington, so I look after from anything from feeding equipment to handling equipment. We do a lot of made to measure on farm and sort of negotiate how we all sort of get on with that, yeah.
Grand. And Stephen, your role as beef and sheep manager?
Pretty much the same as Chris is looking after the beef and sheep side of it, on feed side mainly, looking at different products and how we can improve things going forward, and promoting our products we have at the moment.
Oh, so you'll be spending a lot of time on farm.
Most of my time is spent on farm, yeah.
So what are you seeing at the minute? What's the crack?
I got a time of year now, a lot of lambs are being weaned, or they're being weaned at the moment. People are looking forward to the back end sales and what have you.
Much grass about? What else is happening?
Yeah, a bit of a strange one at the moment, like Cumbria and North Yorkshire, North Lancashire, pretty good for grass, whereas everywhere else is pretty sparse, really.
It's hellish. So I live towards Beedale that way on, and as you drive over the 66, you go from being brown to you hit top of Stainmore, and it just changes to green, and it's like a different country. And I was speaking to some of the lads up in your area, Chris, and they were saying it's so variable from place to place. Like you can drive from one farm to another, and it's so interchanging. What are you seeing? Because you'll cover such a area.
Yeah, I have a large area that I go about because I'm also on farm quite a bit. But definitely there's a big variation between, like Jake says, you dry one area and then you've got plenty of grass in others. I think silage on a whole's been later, and I think there is a lack of grass, so people are feeding stock. Definitely with our area, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main things I want to talk about today is creeping lambs and creeping calves, and that's probably, Hooky, your speciality with what goes in it, and then Chris, you're the system we feed it in. So, Hooky, have we started creeping lambs? What's the crap?
Well, a lot of lambs, as I say, are being weaned at the moment, and lamb prices are buoyant. Lamb prices have gone up in July when they usually drop, so people are, feeding lambs and getting a good return on the money.
So, they normally drop? What do you mean?
Beginning of July, lamb prices usually drop about 50 pence a pound a kilo in the live market, but this year they've actually gone up 20 or 30 pence.
So what are people doing? Is that changing the way people are thinking on farm and the decisions they're making?
I think it's just a lack of numbers, really. National flocks dropped by 5% again this year and 4% the year before, so numbers are getting less and demand's still there.
And are you seeing that on farm, that there's less and less lambs
definitely
about?
Less and less sheep about, definitely.
Yeah. Get on. So, Chris, does that have an effect to you with your handling systems and stuff?
It does. I think on one side it does, on one side it doesn't. I completely agree with Stephen. I think the numbers are back, but I think the people that have the stock have larger amount of stock, so therefore they need a bigger handling system going into the modern world, if you like. But that's definitely how I see it as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, at the minute then, Hooky, I'm so conscious with who our listeners and who hears this, that there's so many different ranges of systems. It's so hard for you to say. You can't just say use this product and it'll do your job like you, Chris. You can't say use this and it'll do it. So there'll be some people that have been creeping lambs for a couple of months now, aren't there?
Yep.
So I think it might just be worth if you just set out the picture of the different types of systems we have and you work with, from some that are maybe early lambing, creeping, and what market they're targeting, and then some of the later ones, and then maybe some of the ones that are running round and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, you get people lambing, February time, and they're looking to hit their market in May, June, with the lambs when the price is historically higher. And then you got the general lambing time, March, April time, when then people are coming on the market from about now onwards. Usually as the price is just starting to dip, but this year it's holding high. Then you got people that'll run lambs right through all the way through winter, hoping to hit the peak sales in January and February.
So What affects the market fluctuation?
Just simply supply and demand and export.
What do you mean?
Well, like anything else, it's a supply and demand. If the supply is tight, the price is good.
So is that because everyone tends to lamb in spring?
Everybody lambs spring, more or less, yeah.
Everyone lambs spring, so we have a lot of lamb hitting the market in.
This is probably peak time now, July, August, yeah.
And is that because they've fattened off grass, or what's the... Just trying to work out how do you work back with your customers and then work out what product. So where do we want to finish? Then work back. I know you've talked to me before about, well, Jake, where does this person want to get to? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And then that's how we understand the right product for them and start thinking about the nutrition.
Yeah, well, early in the season, if somebody's creep feeding lambs early doors, you're looking for a creep feed of about 18% to grow them lambs on. And you get to this time of year when the lambs are bigger and just wanting some finish on, you're probably coming down to a 13-14% cake, high in starch and cereals, so he's going to put finish onto them.
You're going to have to explain a bit more what you mean by 18% and 13%. Why is it everyone comes here and turns into Jimmy Goldie and starts chucking numbers at me?
Well, it's quite simple. Early doors, you're looking to grow lambs, and it's protein that puts growth into the lambs. So you're looking for a 16-18%. When you get to this time of year, the lamb's done the growing, all you've got to do is put condition on the back, so you're looking at energy, which comes from starch and cereals.
Right. So if we're looking, so if we've lambed, and lambing time will have been pretty good, is it, this time?
Been a pretty good lambing time, yep.
Yeah, so that's because the weather's been good. Most people in where we are be lambing outside.
Yep.
Yeah, so not much challenge. A lot more lambs this season, is that correct?
Slightly more, not many more, no, just because numbers back. Breeding ewes down to 13 million in the country, back 5%, as I said before. So we got less sheep in lamb, so you're going to have less lambs.
Right,
But
so we've got less lambs, but more lambs have stayed alive, but
Yep,
it's a net loss.
It's pretty even on the year.
Pretty even on the year, right. So then we're looking at, we've got these lambs, grass is good, depending where you are. Some people, different challenges, as we said. You're starting to think about when you want to get them away. So you're thinking about what is going through your head and what questions are you asking to that farmer to understand what you need to be thinking about nutrition-wise.
You're going on farm now and asking, how are your lambs fairly forward? Are they looking good? Are they a bit poor? Are they in the right condition? Do you want to finish them now, or are you going to run on for a bit later? And then you make your mind up which product you're going to sell.
So what do you mean by a bit forward? You're using a lot of terminology here.
Well, a lot of lambs this year, especially in northwest England, have done well. Been kind weather, good grass conditions, and gone on well. And so we're in good condition, and maybe a week or two in front what they normally are.
Right. So what is in growth wise?
As in growth wise and weight wise, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So then you're thinking, right? Somebody comes to you. I've got quite a bit of grass. I'm on the west of the country, and I'm not sure whether to creep lambs. I haven't really crept lambs before. First question is, what does creeping lambs even mean? Because I was thinking about this today. We talk a lot about creep feed, but I don't even know what it actually means.
Basically, just feeding lambs have a concentrate or a blend.
Right.
Well, they're still out of grass and are still on the mothers.
So just additional
feed. Yeah.
Additional feed. So then we're trying to go, right, so we're going to feed a creep. We're going to creep feed. Yeah. What else are you thinking about? Like, what is in your decision-making process?
As I say, it's just what the farm wants to do. Does he want to finish them as quickly as possible, or does he want to run them on later into the year?
So I want to finish them as quickly as possible.
If you want to finish as quick as possible, you go with a high cereal diet with low in protein.
So cereal's cheap at the minute.
Relatively
So
cheap, yep.
feed should be cheap.
Yes and no. Other things going to feed rather than just cereals. You've got your proteins, you've got your vitamin and minerals, you've got additives such as yeast. There's all sorts going to a different feed. So
cereal, so we've got barley, maize, wheat. So barley's cheap. Maize
probably about £30-40 a tonne over barley.
And are they all quite similar? That's where...
All high in starch, but maize is a lot safer form of starch than barley or wheat.
Why are you bothered about that?
You don't want to give them acidosis. You can soon give lambs acidosis with a high cereal diet.
Acidosis?
Where the rumen stops functioning properly because you've killed off a bacteria with high pH in the rumen, low pH in the rumen, sorry.
So what's basically lambs have got greedy and just ate loads?
Ate too much, yeah.
So, Chris, I imagine this comes to you then. So, what sort of feeders have you got that stop lambs being greedy and eating, or how does it work? Is that something that comes into your spectrum?
Certainly with creep feeders, obviously we do various types of creep feeders. You know, you've got the double-sided 8-foot ones where you can put out to grass with the ewes and lambs, so then you alter the headspace, so lambs can get into the feed ad lib, whereas the ewes can't get in, and you're not feeding ewes unnecessarily, but your lambs are getting fed. And then you can follow that right through to the winter and use that type of feeder as a hog feeder. You just open them up so the spaces allow them bigger sheep to come in. And then also we deal with hog hoppers for the later in the season. That goes, you know, they're just a static or a mobile feeder outside. But then skipping back to your creep feeding, it's definitely a benefit to have a creep feeder in with your ewes and lambs. So yeah, we do various different types. We do them with shelter type or meshed floors to stop with foot trouble. And then obviously the double-sided ones are very popular because easy shifted in the field, you know, and that's really the benefit of those.
So how does a feeder help with foot problems?
More or less the ones that we do are static and they have a mesh floor. So the ground within the feeder underneath the shelter is off the ground, so any bacteria off the foot doesn't go into the ground where they're feeding constantly. So that helps prevent foot rot. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because often you see them when you're driving on the road. Oh, it's always on a roadside field, isn't it?
Yes.
And you just see them in a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that... Because a creep's quite expensive to get into when someone's thinking, I haven't crepe fed before, but I'm thinking about doing it, sort of.
The average cost of a creep feeder is the initial. You know, they're not cheap, but the benefit is it's good at them. You know, it is good. Again, you've got to decide what suits your system. So if you're getting, like Stephen says, if you're wanting lambs away early, straight, you know, off the yow, if you like, and then after spinning, you want to get those creep feeders out as soon as you possibly can. And then, however, you can keep feeding right through. But if you're more of a later finisher, store lamb kind of finisher, you get into your hog hoppers, and obviously they're not quite as expensive, but they come in various sizes. You can feed from anywhere from 250 kilo right up to 1250. So it saves the labour of filling the feeders every day, every other day. Because once you get lambs onto creep, there's no lying that they will eat it. But it's doing a job. Then I always think that's a good thing if lambs are taking feed.
Yeah, Stephen's happy.
Definitely. So
Yeah.
but we've sold quite a lot of creep feeders this time, and obviously on both grants, both the FETF grants on the English side and the FFIS scheme in Scotland, both creep feeders are on there, the shelter type. So that's definitely worth considering if you haven't already applied. I know the English grants are now closed, but the Scottish grants are open for a little bit yet. So if anybody's interested in that, they should, think about doing that because it is a benefit.
Yeah, I suppose if you haven't crepe fed before and you're looking at it now, so as Stephen said, the value of stock's high, but
Yes.
cereals seem cheap. We'll get into some of the other nutrients later, but it's probably a good investment. And there'll be people that maybe have got arable and they're looking and going, we've got this corn, it's at all right yields, better than we maybe thought, but it's cheap. And stocks, I'll maybe just put it around back into stock, and then it's looking at how you complement that. It's another thing to think about, isn't it?
And if you're just starting off, if you buy a creep feeder, that creep feeder is going to last you a long time. The better you look after it, the longer it'll last. But they're galvanized or painted, so they last a long time. It's not like it's a 1 or a 2 year item. If it's looked after, it'll go on and on and on. Yeah.
I always get worried. Do lambs not get the heads stuck in them?
There's big debate about that. The creep feeders that we sell, 8-foot double-sided, they've got spring-loaded bars. So, for instance, if you've got them set for your lamb size, or you get a larger lamb that's growing hard, or you get a yow that gets in, once she pulls back, the bars do come up on a spring system, so that eliminates the hour the lamb getting hung in the feeder. So that's definitely what people think about, but the ones we have do have springs to prevent
And
that.
does the spring go back down? 'Cause
Straight back down, so
was gonna say.
so the space is back to normal as soon as they've released the one that's got stuck. Yeah,
that sounds like a
yeah.
good thing.
I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Because I know that is a worry when people think, and a lot of it is. And how would you get your headspace?
Headspace,
Like,
that's
'cause
it.
yeah,
It's a
must
dead
be.
easy adjustment. On an 8-foot one, for instance, there's 24 spaces on them. So there's you let the release off at one end, and then you literally just adjust the width of it's on a threaded bar, and you just adjust the width you want. And as your lambs get bigger, you'll see the odd one pulling back on the bar. You just let it out and let it out, and then by the time you've come to spaining, your yows away, and then if you've still got lambs left, you just open her right up and feed her ad lib. Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. So there's stockmanship again, isn't it? You can't just ask ChatGPT or something.
No.
And say, what's space? You've got to be looking at your lambs, looking at your
Yeah.
sheep, and making sure that they're set. And once you start seeing maybe a bit of rubbing on the collar or whatever, you start.
And if you've got lambs coming into the pens every sort of fortnight to go through them, you realise how much your lambs are growing along the back, along the head. When you're dosing them, you see how big they're getting, so you can easily control the width of your creep feeder.
I guess that's something you'll be measuring, especially when you're talking about your protein, Stephen, and making sure you get them growing. What sort of benchmarks do you use, and how do you use that daily live weight gain to make sure your lambs are pushing on?
Well, on good grass on a mother's, a lamb should be doing a third of a kilo a day, but that has to be on good reseeded ground and plentiful grass. So therefore, when you put them on a creep feed, you expect to get that 0.3, 0.35 daily live weight gain per day, which is more of an insurance policy when you're creep feeding than just rely on grass and the weather.
Yeah. So you start to see the growth. And that's where, did you say you'd be on an 18%? So we talked about the starch sources, your barley, your wheat, your maize, and saying maize is probably your safest one, and acidosis, as we discussed. Thinking about your protein, what sort of proteins are you using to get to that percentage?
Early doors, only 18s, you're probably looking main sources would be distillers, rape and soya. And then when you come down into the finishing period, you'd be probably relying on distillers and rape. The soya's not needed.
Right. Right, good. And then what else is going in? You talked about minerals and yeasts, did you say?
Yeah, on the more intense diets, you probably put the yeast in there just to keep the rumen happy again, just to keep it buffered so it doesn't cause acidosis. And then you got in a good mineral package. You always want plenty of vitamin E in there because cereals are low in vitamin E, and you need ammonium chloride to keep the waterworks going right.
So it sounds like this rumen's important to the efficiency of the lamb and how well it's thriving. What do you mean by the yeast, helps it?
The yeast there stabilises rumen because when you put them in a high cereal diet, the pH in the rumen falls, and if that pH falls below 6, it causes problems to the rumen. It doesn't function properly, and if it falls down to 5.8, you're in trouble. You're probably on the verge of losing the lamb. So the yeast actually keeps that pH above 6, so it's working more efficiently all the time.
But it sounds like it could cost more, because I'm just thinking, if I've got these things in, well, actually, if I've got some cheap barley and I'm a bit short of grass, why don't I just buy a feeder off Chris, bang some barley in it, cheap, and crack on?
You can take that risk if you want, but as I say, you've got the chance of acidosis just by on straight barley. Also, there's no minerals in there and no ammonium chloride, so you could be in trouble with urinary calculi.
What?
Urinary, I can't say myself.
That one?
that one.
Yeah, so
Stones.
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 So talk to me a little bit about that.
Lambs, especially whether lambs are prone to urinary calculi, which is a build-up of limestone in the bladder.
And not everyone will know what a weather lamb is, because we're not all in Cumbria.
A weather lamb is a castrated ram lamb.
Yeah. So you have to be thinking if you're going to be giving it to your tub lambs or not.
You've got to be careful, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where you come and ask you and properly understand what you're doing. And minerals, it seems a bit Some people maybe say it's expensive fairy dust. What's your opinion on that?
Well, everything needs. We all need minerals and vitamins ourselves, don't we? And animals no exception. You've got to have the correct balance of mineral and vitamins to keep a healthy animal.
So that just keeps them thriving. And I guess that's where, if you have got your own cereals at home, and you'd be maybe thinking, well, actually, you'd be able to do a blend where you double mineralise with a yeast in and maybe a high protein one to balance it up, or what do you tend to do?
Well, yeah, if they've got their own barley, you probably put in there 18 to 25% protein meal just to balance a ration and put the minerals in as well.
Yeah. And so, because that you can feed whole barley, can't you?
Oh, definitely. Whole barley is the safest way to feed barley to lambs. There's no point in going to the expense and time of rolling it.
Go on.
With cattle, the whole barley goes straight through cattle because it goes straight through the rumen, whereas in a lamb, the rumen is that much smaller, so it's sieved out, so it doesn't go straight through. The lamb can digest whole barley.
All right. And I guess, is it slower? I could be completely wrong here, but I'm just going to guess. Is it slower releasing because it's got less surface area, whereas rolled barley's got more surface area, and you're releasing the inside and the powder? I'm just thinking of my porridge.
Yeah, when you roll cereals, you're exposed to starch, so therefore the rumen bugs break that starch down faster, whereas if it's whole, they have to get through the kernel first before they get to the starch, so it's far, far safer.
And that's why maize, you have like your whole maize, and then your what's like the half grinded maize.
Cracked maize.
Cracked maize.
Yeah, maize is a lot safer because it isn't all digested in the rumen, so therefore that's why it's better for finishing cattle or lambs. It bypasses the rumen, does so much of starch, so you don't get that big burst of starch into the rumen all at once from maize. A lot of it's digested in the hindgut.
Right.
And so you don't upset the rumen.
Yeah. A lot to think about, then, isn't there?
A lot to think about. It's not just as simple as putting barley in front of lambs.
No. And I guess silage is going to come into it as well. Like, there's a lot of people cropping at the minute, and how do you balance that up with?
On finishing lambs, I try to keep away from silage because if you're going to feed silage to finishing lambs, it's got to be absolute rocket fuel. You've got to have 11.2, 11.5 ME silage to make it worthwhile feeding, because you're just filling the rumen with something hasn't got enough energy to fatten a lamb.
Yeah.
So basically with lambs, if you put them inside, you'll be on concentrate and straw just to keep the rumen happy. If you put them onto silage, they're going to eat too much silage and not going to eat enough concentrate, so they take them longer and longer to fatten.
What about hay? Because I think hay might be quite cheap, when straw could be just a bit hard to get this year, potentially.
Again, if you give lambs chance of concentrate and hay, they're going to eat a fair bit of hay because they do like it, and that in turn will slow the fattening process down again.
Yeah. Oh, and I meant to say, if you have got 11 ME silage, we've got a silage competition. So if you've got good silage, speak to one of our local reps or branches, and I think you can win about 500 quid of various different stuff. So it's well worth entering.
Well worth it.
Everybody's making silage, so if I was you, I'd get entered. I'm sure there'll be more information on the old social media as we go. That's a good thing. So we've talked quite a lot about lambs then. I think one thing that might be worth thinking about is creeping lambs, troughing lambs. So I know some people that'll maybe feed half a kilo, either end of the day, or half kilo either end of the day, just because it's a bit safer, worried about that acidosis, and just a bit of that cost stuff. It just, you know what you're using, or maybe you're a smaller farmer and you're buying it in bags from one of our stores, and you can really keep, and you're weighing lambs to see what you go for it is to make sure you've got that return on investment. Could you just talk to us a bit about troughing and then the troughs we've got on offer?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people still do, and it's been a traditional way of feeding lambs is by troughs. Once a day, twice a day. You've got control on what you're giving them, so you can set them off slowly and build them up to cut that risk of acidosis. And as you say, you know exactly what you're giving them. It is time consuming though. You've got to be there every day or twice a day if you're feeding twice a day, where if you're feeding the hopper, you can fill it up once, twice, 3 times a week, depending on the size of the hopper.
And does it affect the product that you're putting in?
No.
No?
Feed anything.
Right. So it doesn't matter blend.
Doesn't matter. Blend, barley.
Do more people
Concentrate.
feed a blend in a trough, or
Possibly. Blends don't go through hoppers just as well as a compound, obviously. Also, blends in a hopper attract a lot of crows and seagulls and what have you.
so what troughs have we got on offer? And I didn't realise the vermin thing was quite a thing. Have you got anything to add to that?
Obviously, we do timber troughs. You can either get a V bottom or a flat bottom. It's a personal choice that. And to be honest, if you're turning troughs at night to stop water, overnight in the troughs, the V's are very popular. That's the traditional type of trough feeding. But obviously, we do galvanised metal troughs as well, anywhere from 2 to 9 foot. And again, the wooden troughs, you're looking at 10 foot as the average size, with the metal banding on either side. And then so it depends on what you prefer, really, between the flat and the V bottomed for the trough feeding.
Yeah, because I guess it's quite a simple system that'll be.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then once we get into sort of feed bins, obviously we've got the people that can supply a feed silo, and then obviously we've got sort of ton, half ton bins if you want them in the yard as well. But obviously we do the bulk bins across the board, so we can cater for most needs, to be honest. Yeah.
All right, go on. So just thinking about troughing. So, troughing and your creep. Well, what do you need to be thinking about on the vermin side? Or Stephen's touched on that on a few things. Is there anything that you can do, or what do you say about creep being left in fields? And do you see much of a problem with it? And what?
Yes, you do get bother with crows if you're in an area that's heavily crowed sort of thing. We on the shelter types, we have one supplier that'll put curtains on both lamb and creep feeders if you have a real problem. But because the creep feeder is sort of covered, you don't have an awful lot of bother. I wouldn't say you don't get bother, but on the double-sided ones, they have a lip to stop feed getting wet as well, and it does put vermin off a little bit, but it's something that can be a problem, yeah.
So it stops feed getting wet, and is there? And did I think I said looked somewhere. Do some have these ones to catch feed now as well? If there's any.
Yes, there is a second like a layer that'll stop that. You tend to keep that for your sort of the calf creep feeding, but yeah, you can get that. But you don't get a lot of waste with the creep feeders. The shelter type's obviously the best because the feed can't get weathered. Whereas with the double-sided, if you're on the top of a hill somewhere and you've got wind blowing into one side, you do risk getting a bit of wet feed there. But on the whole, it works. Yeah.
Right. Well, just before we roll into calf feeding, and this will be one that sort of does a bit of both. We talked a little bit about return on investment and weighing. It's maybe more of a question for yourself, Chris, around like handling systems and weighing. How have you talked about the technology and how technology's increased? What sort of thing do you have on offer, and has maybe it changed in the last few years that you're seeing people change the handling and management systems?
Definitely, management systems have definitely changed, and I think the thinking's definitely changed. Daily live weight gain is definitely a big thing. We can do various weighing systems from the basic weight crate, which will just tell you a weight, which is absolutely fine to do. On the other side, we can get a pro draft, which will sort your lambs into weight and then draft them off into wherever they need to be. But it's definitely more getting geared up to keeping an eye on your stock, what they're doing every sort of week, every fortnight. So you're more in touch with it with using technology, really. Yeah.
And I think more and more people are looking at the wormer side of it and, well, just the general health, aren't they? And saying, well, actually, if there's a dip in live weight gain in the lambs,
yes,
we need to be getting in, we need to be fetal egg counting or do whatever, then we can take a proactive approach, whether that's worming, whether that's fly treatment, whether it's actually we need to be feeding a bit more, increasing the feed or the motoring or whatever it is, looking at it.
Definitely, and when you've just mentioned the dosing side of it there, we obviously there's tag readers that'll like a panel reader, and then we've got a dose gun that'll work with your weighing system that'll allocate the right amount of drug for that beast or sheep. So that's definitely modern technology, and it's the way it's going to go in my eyes. So I think it is, yeah.
And on the animal health side, we had Alan King a couple of months ago talking about how it's about selective treatment and making sure you worm at the right time with the right product and, like you say, at the right weight. To have
Absolutely.
the right effect.
Absolutely.
So going into calf feeding then, Stephen, we're thinking some of these calves will now be being weaned, will they? And or are we still a bit early? And what are you seeing on the calf side of it? And talk to me a bit about calf feeding.
Yeah, just a bit early. A lot of most suckler calves nowadays are born maybe February, March, April. So a lot 4 or 5 month old, still on the mothers. People are weaning lambs, so sheep are going out of the field. So it's an ideal time to put a calf creep into the field and feed those suckler calves. It's all best thing you can do to suckler calf is creep feed it, because you're getting dry feed into it. You're taking pressure off a cow. It's not relying on grass all the time, and that dry feed just makes rumen develop a bit faster, because a suckler calf, its rumen develops very, very slowly because it's just used to drinking milk and a bit of grass. But if you put some dry feed in there, the rumen develops a lot faster. So when you come to weaning in 3 or 4 months' time, that rumen is fully developed and the calf will go forward faster.
So what do you mean about taking pressure off the cow?
Well, you know, that calf's getting 3 or 4 months now. Its demand for milk is increasing all the time because it's increasing in size, and that cow has to produce that milk for that calf to keep it going, and it becomes harder and harder and bigger challenge to the cow as it goes on. And so if you're offering a bit of creep feed, that calf isn't going to take as much milk off its mother.
Yeah, it amazes me, this subject, because you think, what will a calf be taking off a suckler cow? How many litres?
Depends on the breed of a suckler cow, but a calf could drink 12, 15, 18 litres of milk by now, easy enough.
Yeah. Yet we still on some places, right? Some it'll work well, but we can still restrict for 6 to 7 litres of a calf milk replacer. And you think, actually, are we just limiting when the potential is at the most at a calf? We have products that you can feed 10. Lucy will kill me, I don't know the exact number, but 10, 12 litres. I know that they're feeding on calves that you think would never get it, small jerseys, getting real. And the growth rates are phenomenal because they're at that early stage, and that you're invested in the future of your herd, aren't you? Yeah, so what sort of products are you putting through these calf creeps? What type? Is it a blend?
Again, it depends to the farmer. Some people will put just a straight compound nut in there. Some people feed a coarse mixture. And other people just simple rolled barley blends. It all depends on the farmer and the system.
Go on then, and what are you thinking about with that? You're forgetting all our listeners haven't got 20 years or 30 years in the industry feeding calves and feeding lambs. What I'm trying to do is get that knowledge out of you to them.
I'll probably set off with a 16% protein.
Why?
Great feed. Again, your calf's, partly grown. It doesn't need the 18, that sort of age, really. And the 16 will just help it develop growth rather than putting flesh on.
Is that because it's getting quite a lot of protein from the milk?
It's getting milk, and it's getting a bit of grass, which is very, very high in protein. Yeah.
So it'll just keep trickling on?
Just keep it trickling on nicely and balance the diet out.
Yeah, cool. So what sort of systems would we be putting that through, or putting this in might be the better word?
Like your suckler herds, creep feeders in a general, we've got painted or galvanised now, adjustable or standard, and then obviously once you've got the feeder itself, you can have a forklift bar to shift them about on the teleporter or the loader, or if it's easier, we can put a 3-point linkage onto the side, so you can shift them about with ease, to be honest with you, because they're a bulky item, but the benefit is massive to have a calf creep out in the field there. Yeah.
And what are you thinking about then, Chris? What sort, when someone comes with you, what calf creep feeders have you got? I want a cheap one.
No, I think I have to say that we have the quality calf creep feeders with us. I think the ones we have are very welded strong. That's the main thing. You've got heavy beasts going around them. You want the product to last. So we have a painted one, or we can get it in galvanized now, which will last. But ultimately, you can have an adjustable bar. I would go for the adjustable bar. That allows you to just sort of keep an eye on your calf size, and then you can adjust the fronts so the creep gates can be adjusted per size of animal. But that's the most popular, certainly the adjustable calf creep feeder.
Yeah, and no grants on them.
No, not on the calf side, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a shame. No. And is there anything else you want to touch on calf creep feeding? Because you don't really trough calves, do you? Because you wouldn't.
You definitely can. I mean, we we do a low level trough, which is ideal for fattening calves outside, or feeding, or in the shed as well. You don't need to necessarily be outside for a trough fed. But we do various types of, double-sided troughs. So the beef trough is just literally an open basin where you put the feed in, and that's very popular. And then you can also get bars on there for the TB side, which will prevent the badger going over the top. So there's lots of options that will suit everybody really.
Yeah, the badger.
The badger.
Badger.
Yeah. So, Stephen, is there anything more you want to add on about calf creep and just thinking? A few comments to finish.
I think creep feeding suckler calves is probably the best thing you can ever do for that calf in its life, because you're going to get used to eating feed. So when it comes into the housing in winter, it's ready. It's used to eating hard feed. The change in the diet isn't as big, and the stress on weaning isn't as big. It's essential, I think, to creep feed calves in this day and age.
I suppose it's never been a better time with the price of your raw materials being cheap, and then your meat being the highest. Is it the highest on record?
Yeah, the price of beef and lamb is fairly high. It's very high, really, and the price of feed in comparison is as low as it's been for a long time. So your return on money is unbelievable. You're probably 2 to 3 to 1 for lambs, and probably more for cattle.
Yeah. No, well, tell you what, I think it's been a really good episode. Thank you two so much for your time. I think, Stephen, your knowledge on the nutritional and getting your raw materials right, I think when people are looking at their creep feeding, whether that's lambs or calves, they actually look what's on the ticket and not just say, I want your best 18. They look at the different starch sources, the proteins, the minerals, whether it's got a yeast in, because just because it's a tenner a tonne cheaper, well, it might have yeast in, it might not. It's so variable. And then, Chris, I guess it's making sure you get the right product for what you want to do, not just a cheap one from a second-hand farm sale because it was there.
Yeah,
it's understanding where you want to do, making sure you're monitoring your stock and you're moving the spring-loaded bars to make sure they can get in.
Absolutely.
And sounds like keeping an eye on these grants.
Absolutely, it's a big thing.
Yeah. So, and hopefully there'll be more grants to come. I know Scotland's still open.
Yeah, Scotland's still open, so no, all good.
Cool. So thank you very much. That's a Cars Billiton podcast. Proud to farm. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm your host, Jake McRobert.